The silence after her threat sat heavier than the chainsaws ever did. One of the crew shifted his weight, boots grinding into my gravel like he was waiting to see which way this went. Victoria did not blink. She thought she had already won. I stepped past her and walked straight to the gate control box mounted on the cedar post they had not cut. The metal was warm from the sun. My hand rested on it for a second longer than necessary. That box controlled the only maintained road down to the lake docks. Every delivery truck, every maintenance crew, every homeowner with a boat trailer passed through it. And right now, her truck was parked across it like it meant nothing. I turned back toward her slowly. The chipper started again behind us, loud and hungry, chewing through what used to be my tree line. "Move the truck," I said. My voice stayed level. She smiled wider, like this was a negotiation she had already rehearsed. "The road serves the community," she said. "You cannot just threaten access because you are upset." Another branch snapped into the machine. I watched it disappear. She was still using that word. Community. Like it gave her reach past my fence. I walked the edge of the cut line, boots brushing sawdust that still felt warm. The ground was uneven now. Roots exposed. Soil loose. Whoever planned this did not care about erosion or runoff. When the next rain came, that slope would bleed straight into the lake. I crouched and pressed my fingers into the dirt. It crumbled too easily. That was going to matter later. I stood again and looked at the remaining posts. 3 were intact. 2 had been knocked sideways. The boundary line was not just crossed. It was erased. Victoria followed me with her eyes but did not move. She thought paper could redraw land. "You should have contacted me," I said. She lifted the clipboard again, tapping it with one finger. "We followed internal process." Internal. Not county. Not state. Internal. The word landed wrong for her and she did not even hear it. A man in a hard hat approached, holding a tablet. He glanced at me, then at her, waiting for direction. "We are finishing the lower line," he said. Lower line meant closer to the water. Closer to the dock road. Closer to the drainage channel I had spent years stabilizing with rock and culvert pipe. If they touched that, the next storm would not just move dirt. It would move the road. And if the road moved, nothing reached the lake. Victoria gave a small nod without looking at him. "Continue." The man hesitated. Just a fraction. Then he turned and signaled the crew. Engines revved again. I watched the first saw bite into another trunk near the slope break. That was the point where runoff split and flowed into the culvert system I installed. I felt my jaw set. They were not just opening a view. They were dismantling a system they did not even know existed. I walked back to the gate and keyed the panel awake. The screen flickered, then steadied. Status lights ran down the side. Green. 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 Every segment active. Every lock responding. Behind me, Victoria finally took a step closer. "What are you doing?" she asked. I did not answer right away. I watched the indicator for the lower access arm, the one that controlled the final drop to the docks. It blinked once, waiting for input. The wind shifted. The smell of fresh pine thinned, replaced by the faint mineral scent of the lake below. I pressed my thumb lightly against the control pad but did not trigger anything yet. Not here. Not in front of her. Not while her crew was still cutting deeper into that slope. This was already past a dispute. She had just pushed it into something she could not see. I lifted my thumb off the control pad and let the screen go dark again. Not yet. Timing mattered more than anger here. Behind me, another tree gave way near the slope break, the sound duller now, like the ground itself was starting to loosen. I turned back toward the crew and watched where they were cutting. Too close to the drainage line. Way too close. That culvert was not visible unless you knew where to look. Buried under rock, angled just right to carry runoff away from the road and into the lake without tearing the hillside apart. They were about to expose it, maybe crush it, and once that happened, the first heavy rain would not just wash dirt. It would take the road with it. I stepped down the slope a few yards, boots sliding slightly on loose soil. The air felt different here. Damp. Cooler. I could hear the faint trickle of water already shifting under the ground. That was new. One of the workers noticed me and shut his saw off. The sudden quiet rang in my ears. "Sir, you should not be down here," he said, glancing back toward Victoria. I did not look at her. I pointed at the ground near his feet. "Do you know what runs under that?" He hesitated. That was all I needed. "No," he said finally. Of course he did not. None of them did. They were following orders drawn on paper that never touched dirt. I crouched and brushed away a thin layer of sawdust and loose soil. The edge of the culvert pipe came into view, metal scarred from years of use but still solid. Still doing its job. For now. The worker leaned in slightly, curiosity breaking through his caution. "What is that?" he asked. I stood up slowly. "That is the reason this road has not washed into the lake in 20 years, I said. His eyes flicked toward the slope above us, then back to the pipe. He stepped back without thinking. "Smart move." Victoria's voice cut in from behind. "We are not discussing infrastructure," she said sharply. "Finish the line." The worker looked between us, then restarted his saw, but his grip had changed. Tighter. Less certain. I climbed back up to the main grade, the gravel crunching louder now that I knew what was about to happen. Victoria was watching me differently. Not worried. Not yet. But the edge of control had shifted. Just a little. "You are overreacting," she said, lowering her voice. "We are improving property value for everyone." Property value. She kept circling back to that like it was the only number that mattered. I looked past her again at the open stretch where my trees used to stand. The view was clear now. Too clear. Straight lines of sight from deck to shoreline, from shoreline to road, from road to gate. They had not just opened a view. They had exposed every layer of access that tied that side of the lake together. And they had done it without understanding how those layers held each other in place. I walked back to the control box. And opened the side panel this time. Inside, the wiring was clean. Labeled. Maintained. I had installed half of it myself over the years. Every relay, every sensor, every override switch had a purpose. The lower gate, the mid-road arm, the top access lock. All connected. All dependent on that road staying intact. I ran my finger along the lower gate relay and felt the faint vibration of current. Active. Ready. Behind me, the crew pushed deeper into the slope line. Another cut. Another shift in the soil. I did not need to see it to know what they were about to hit. I closed the panel slowly and locked it with a soft click. Victoria took a step closer again. "You cannot control the road like that," she said. "It serves the entire community." I met her eyes for the first time since she made the threat. "It serves because I let it," I said. The wind picked up off the lake, carrying a cooler draft up the hill. It moved through the empty space where my trees used to stand and hit the exposed slope without anything to slow it down. The soil shifted again, just slightly, but enough. The worker nearest the break line paused mid-cut and looked down. I did not move. I just watched the ground decide what it was going to do next. The ground gave a soft shift under the worker's boots, just enough to make him step back fast. The saw went silent again. Everyone heard it this time. Not loud. Not dramatic. Just a low settling sound, like the hillside was adjusting to something it did not like. The man looked up toward Victoria, waiting. She did not give him anything. "Keep going," she said, sharper now. He did not move right away. That hesitation spread through the crew like a ripple. Small, but real. I watched the slope instead of them. The top layer of soil had loosened where the roots used to hold it. Without the trees, nothing locked it in place. Another gust came off the lake, cooler this time, pushing straight through the open line they had cut. It hit the exposed dirt and lifted a thin veil of dust into the air. I could see the pattern forming. Slow. Predictable. I stepped down again, closer to the culvert line. The worker nearest it backed off completely. Now, boots scraping as he climbed up to firmer ground. Smart again. He was learning faster than his boss. I crouched and pressed my palm flat against the soil. It shifted under the pressure, not collapsing, but sliding just enough to confirm what I already knew. The structure was compromised. Not destroyed. Not yet. But close enough that one more cut in the wrong place would push it past the point of easy repair. I stood up and turned back toward Victoria. "You need to stop," I said. No edge in my voice. Just fact. She crossed her arms, the clipboard tucked tight against her side. "We are finishing the job," she replied. "This has already been approved." Approved. That word again. Always inside her system. Never outside it. I glanced at the broken stakes, then at the open stretch of land, then back at her. "Not here," I said. "Not on this side." She did not answer. She did not have to. She lifted her chin slightly and gave a small nod toward the crew. The saws started again. Louder this time. More aggressive. Like they needed to prove something. The blade bit into the next trunk near the drainage split. I took one step back. Then another. Not retreating. Just clearing the line. The worker cutting that tree shifted his stance, trying to keep balance on uneven ground. The cut went deeper. The trunk creaked. Then the soil beneath him slid a few inches, enough to throw off his angle. He pulled back instinctively, killing the saw before anything worse could happen. The tree did not fall clean this time. It leaned, half-cut, held by fibers that should not have been under that kind of tension. The slope groaned again, a little louder now. Victoria's smile faded for the first time. Not gone. Just thinner. She looked past me toward the lower line, finally seeing what her crew was standing on. I walked back up to the gate control box without rushing. Every step felt measured. Deliberate. The panel was still warm when I opened it again. Inside, the system hummed quietly, steady, unaffected by the chaos 30 yards away. That contrast mattered. Order inside. Instability outside. I keyed the interface awake and navigated to the lower access controls. The indicator for the dock road flickered once, responding instantly. No delay. No error. Everything still connected. For now. Behind me, the crew had stopped again. No one wanted to be the one who pushed the slope too far. Victoria stepped closer, slower this time. "This is temporary," she said, but her voice had lost that clean certainty. I did not look back at her. I watched the screen. I watched the control lines tied to that road. I watched the system she had just threatened without understanding what held it together. My thumb hovered over the input again, closer this time. The wind shifted once more, carrying a faint sound from below. Not water. Not yet. But something moving where it should not have been. I did not press the control yet. I just watched the indicator blink, steady and patient, like it had all the time in the world. Behind me, the slope gave another quiet shift. This time it carried farther down, a soft ripple moving through loose soil toward the culvert line. One of the workers swore under his breath and stepped back again. No one wanted to stand on that edge now. The chainsaws stayed off. That was new. Silence spread across the cut line, broken only by the low hum of the chipper idling and the wind moving through empty space where my trees used to stand. I closed the panel halfway but did not latch it. Not yet. Victoria was closer now. I could hear her shoes on gravel, slower than before. Careful. You are making this bigger than it needs to be, she said. Her voice was lower, like she was trying to keep control from slipping further. I did not turn around. I kept my eyes on the slope and the line where the soil had started to give. You already made it bigger, I said. Another small slide followed, just a few inches of dirt slipping down and exposing more of the culvert edge. The metal glinted in the light. That got everyone's attention. One of the crew pointed at it. Is that supposed to be exposed? He asked. No one answered him. Victoria did not have an answer. I stepped away from the control box and walked back toward the brake line. Each step sank slightly into the loose ground. I stopped just short of the exposed pipe and looked down at it. Again. The alignment was still intact, but the support around it was thinning. Without the root structure, nothing held that upper layer in place. It was only a matter of time now. Time, or one more bad cut. I looked up at the crew. If that collapses, I said, you do not just lose dirt. I let that sit for a second. No need to explain everything. They were already starting to understand. One of them shut off his saw completely and rested it on the ground. Another followed. Tools went quiet one by one. Victoria exhaled sharply behind me. We are not stopping, she said, but it sounded more like a decision she was trying to convince herself of. I turned back to her slowly. Then you are finishing this without a road, I said. That landed differently. She frowned, just enough. You cannot shut down access, she said. People live down there. I nodded once. Exactly. I walked back to the control box and opened the panel fully this time. The system lit up again. Clean. Responsive. Waiting. I navigated to the mid-road controls first, not the lower gate. The sequence mattered. Always did. If you shut the lower gate first, you trap everything below. If you locked the mid-road, you controlled flow without stranding anyone. Safer. Smarter. The indicator for the mid-road arm blinked once, ready for command. Behind me, the wind picked up again, pushing across the open cut and down the slope. This time it carried a faint, hollow sound from beneath the ground. Not water breaking through. Not yet. But pressure building where it should have been contained. One of the workers stepped back again, farther this time. Ma'am, he called toward Victoria, this does not feel right. She did not answer him immediately. That pause stretched longer than any of her orders had. I rested my thumb lightly against the control. Still not pressing. Still letting it build. Because once I did, everything changed at once. The system would respond. The road would lock. And every person who depended on this access would feel it immediately. Victoria took another step forward, closer than before, her voice tighter now. You are going to regret this, she said. I finally looked at her again. No, I said quietly. You are. The ground shifted again, deeper this time, and the culvert edge dropped just a fraction lower. The culvert dropped another inch, and this time everyone saw it move. A hollow thud echoed under the slope, not loud, but deep enough to carry through the ground and into their boots. One of the workers stepped back fast, nearly losing balance before catching himself on a stump. The silence that followed felt heavier than the noise before it. I pressed my thumb down. The panel beeped once, soft and clean. The mid-road lock engaged immediately. Somewhere down the line, metal arms shifted into place, unseen but absolute. The indicator turned from green to red. Access restricted. Not blocked. Controlled. That distinction mattered. Victoria turned sharply toward the lake road, like she could see through the trees that were no longer there. "What did you just do?" she asked. Her voice cracked just slightly. I closed the panel halfway again and rested my hand against it. "I stabilized the situation," I said. That was the truth, even if she did not understand it yet. Down the slope, the crew had fully stopped now. No one was cutting. No one was touching anything. They were all watching the ground instead. Waiting to see if it would move again. It did not. Not right away. But the tension stayed. You could feel it in the air, like pressure before a storm. A pickup engine started in the distance, down near the lower road. Then stopped. Someone had tried to leave. They had reached the mid-road arm and found it closed. Confusion traveled faster than sound. Victoria pulled her phone out, already dialing. "You cannot do this," she said, pacing a few steps along the gravel. "People need that road." I watched her, then glanced back at the slope. Another thin line of dirt slipped down, slower this time, settling against the exposed pipe. Still holding. Barely. "People need it to be safe," I said. She ignored that. "I am calling the board," she continued, voice rising. "This is unauthorized interference." The word interference hung there, almost ironic. I leaned against the post and crossed my arms. "They already interfered," I said quietly. A worker approached from the edge of the crew, helmet in hand. He stopped a few feet away, not wanting to get closer to either of us. "Ma'am," he said carefully, "we should not keep working that line. The ground is not stable." Victoria waved him off without even looking at him. "We are finishing what we started." The man did not move. He looked at me instead. Not for permission. For confirmation. I gave a small nod toward the slope. That was enough. He turned and started signaling the others to back off further. Tools stayed down. No one argued. Victoria noticed that shift immediately. Control slipping again. "You do not take orders from him," she snapped. The worker paused, then kept moving anyway. That told me everything I needed to know. The system she relied on only worked when people believed in it. And right now, they did not. Another gust rolled up from the lake, stronger this time. It cut across the open ground and pushed straight into the exposed slope. Dust lifted, then settled again in a thin wave. The culvert vibrated slightly, a faint metallic hum under the dirt. Still intact. Still carrying pressure. But not for long if they kept pushing. Victoria ended her call abruptly and turned back to me. "This will be reversed," she said. "You cannot lock out an entire neighborhood." I straightened and stepped closer to the control box again, my hand resting on the panel edge. "I did not lock them out," I said. "I slowed them down." She stared at me, trying to find leverage she did not have. Behind her, the open view stretched all the way to the water now. Clean. Wide. Completely exposed. Exactly what she wanted. And already turning into something she could not manage. A second engine tried to start down the road again. Then stopped. The message had spread. Access was no longer guaranteed. Victoria looked past me once more, finally seeing the chain reaction forming beyond her line of sight. I tapped the panel lightly with one finger. The system hummed in response, steady and controlled. "You touched the wrong part of this property," I said. The ground beneath the slope shifted again, just enough to make the exposed pipe dip another fraction lower. The culvert dipped. Again, not much, but enough to shift the line of dirt above it into a slow crawl downward. This time the sound carried farther, a low sliding whisper that made every head turn at once. No one moved forward anymore. The crew had fully backed off, forming a loose line on solid ground. One of them kicked a loose rock down the slope by accident. It rolled, picked up a little dirt, then disappeared near the exposed pipe. Nobody laughed. Victoria heard it too. Her posture changed. Shoulders tighter. Chin lower. She looked past me toward the mid-road, then back at the slope, then finally down at the broken line where her approved plan had cut too deep. "This is because you stopped the road," she said, trying to stitch cause and effect into something she could control. I shook my head once. "This started when you cut the roots," I said. The wind shifted again, pushing cooler air up from the lake. Without the trees, nothing slowed it. It hit the exposed dirt and lifted a thin sheet of dust that slid across the surface like a warning. Another inch gave way near the culvert edge. Not a collapse. Not yet. But the support was thinning faster now. One of the workers stepped closer to me, voice low. "If that pipe shifts, what happens?" he asked. I kept my eyes on the slope. "The road loses its base," I said. "Then everything above it starts to follow." He nodded once and stepped back again. That answer traveled through the crew faster than any order Victoria had given. You could see it in the way they spread out, putting distance between themselves and the cut line. No one wanted to be near the point where it would give. Down the road, another vehicle tried to approach. Tires on gravel. Then a stop. Then a door slammed. Voices carried faintly up the hill, sharp and confused. The mid-road lock was doing exactly what it was designed to do. Control flow. By time. Victoria's phone buzzed again in her hand. She glanced at it, then declined the call without answering. That was new. She was no longer managing outward. She was trying to hold what was left in front of her. "You are going to open that road," she said, but there was no command behind it now. Just insistence. I did. Not respond right away. I walked a few steps along the upper line, looking at the damage from a different angle. The cut was uneven. Too aggressive in some places, too shallow in others. Whoever marked it had never walked the land. They had drawn it from a screen. That showed. I crouched again and picked up a handful of loose soil. It slipped through my fingers almost instantly. No structure. No hold. I let it fall and stood back up. "You wanted a clear view," I said, still looking at the slope. "This is what it costs." Another small shift answered me, the culvert settling just a fraction lower as dirt slid around it. Victoria took a step back this time. First one since this started. The distance between her and the edge mattered now. She could feel it. The crew was fully disengaged. No saws. No movement. Just watching. Waiting. Listening for the next change. I walked back to the control box and opened the panel again, slower this time. The system glowed steady inside. No alarms. No faults. Just quiet readiness. I navigated past the mid-road control and paused over the lower access line. That one would change everything. Not just flow. Visibility. Dependence. The entire lower side of the lake relied on that final stretch. I did not press it. Not yet. The timing still was not right. Behind me, the voices from down the road grew louder. More people now. More confusion. The effect was spreading beyond this hillside. Exactly as it should. Victoria watched my hand hover over the controls. She did not speak this time. She just waited. The ground gave another soft, sliding sound, deeper than before, and the culvert edge dipped just enough to catch the light differently. The culvert dipped again, deeper this time, and a narrow line of dirt above it split open like a seam giving way. It was still controlled, still slow, but no one missed what it meant anymore. The slope was no longer stable. It was deciding when to move, not if. A sharp voice carried up from below, closer now. Someone had walked up the road from the locked arm, shoes scraping fast over gravel. "Why is the gate closed?" he shouted. Another voice joined him. Then another. The sound stacked, confusion turning into pressure. I did not turn. I kept my eyes on the line where soil met pipe. Every inch mattered now. Victoria stepped closer to me, close enough that I could hear her breath quicken slightly. "Open it," she said, lower this time. Not a command. Not quite a request either. Something in between. I shook my head once. "Not until this holds," I said. Behind us, one of the workers pointed again. "Look," he said. The culvert edge shifted sideways just a fraction. Not a drop. A lateral slide. That was worse. The support was not just thinning. It was losing alignment. The pipe could still carry flow, but the ground around it was no longer distributing weight evenly. One more bad shift, and the road above would start to crack. The wind came up again, stronger than before, cutting across the open gap and driving straight into the exposed slope. Dust lifted in a wide sheet this time, then settled unevenly, revealing how much had already moved. You could see the difference now. Layers that used to sit flat were tilted. Misaligned. The system was unraveling in real time. I stepped forward 2 paces, then stopped at the edge of firm ground. No closer. No need. I could read it from here. A truck engine revved below, frustrated. Then cut off abruptly. Someone kicked gravel. Voices rose again, sharper now. The effect had reached the lower houses. They were feeling it. Not the slope. Not yet. The loss of control. Victoria turned toward the sound this time, just for a second. That was all it took. When she looked back, the certainty was gone from her face. Replaced by calculation. "If that road fails," she said, "everyone down there is cut off." I nodded once. "If this keeps moving," I said, "that happens whether the gate is open or not." That landed. She understood that. Not fully. But enough. Another small shift answered us, the culvert settling again, the pipe edge now clearly misaligned with the soil around it. Still intact. Still working. But under stress it was never designed to take. I turned and walked back to the control box. Slow. Measured. The panel was still open, wires humming faintly inside. I navigated past the mid-road control again, down to the lower access line. My thumb hovered there, closer than before. This was the line that defined everything below. Boats. Deliveries. Emergency access. Daily life. All of it ran through that final stretch. Victoria watched my hand, her silence heavier than anything she had said before. The crew stayed back, spread out, no one willing to move toward the slope again. The hillside let out another low, sliding sound, longer this time, carrying down toward the road. Not a collapse. But close enough that everyone felt it. I rested my thumb against the control pad, just enough to wake the input. The screen pulsed once, waiting. Then I stopped. Not pressing. Not yet. Because the moment had to be exact. The ground shifted again, and this time the top edge of the road line above the culvert cracked just enough to leave a thin, visible line across the gravel. The crack along the road widened by a hair, enough for loose gravel to trickle into the seam and vanish. Every sound stopped. Even the wind seemed to pull back for a second. Then the culvert shifted again, a dull metallic knock from underneath as the alignment slipped just a little further out. That was the line. I pressed my thumb down. The panel chirped once. The lower access lock engaged. Not slammed shut. Just secured, steady and controlled, like a door that would not open unless I allowed it. Down the hill, engines cut off almost at the same time. The realization hit them fast. Access was no longer guaranteed. Victoria turned toward the lake again, but this time she did not step forward. She stayed exactly where she was, like moving closer would change what had already happened. "You just cut off the entire lower section," she said, voice tight. I shook my head once. "I secured it," I said. Another soft shift rolled through the slope, but this time it slowed halfway, settling instead of sliding. The culvert held. Barely, but it held. The crack in the road stopped spreading. Not fixed. Not safe. But contained. That was the difference. The crew stayed back, watching the ground like it might move again at any second. No one touched a tool. No one even spoke now. The hillside had made the decision for them. Victoria lowered her phone slowly. She was not calling anyone anymore. There was no one left to call who could fix this from a distance. She looked past me, across the open stretch where the trees used to stand, all the way to the lake. The view was perfect now. Clean. Wide. Completely exposed. Exactly what she had wanted. And completely useless. No one could reach it without going through me. I stepped away from the control box and closed the panel fully this time, locking it with a quiet click. The system settled into a steady hum, everything aligned to hold what was left in place. The road was no longer theirs to use freely. Not until the ground underneath it was stable again. And that would not happen quickly. The wind came through again, softer now, moving across the cut line and down toward the water. Without the trees, it carried straight through, unbroken. It felt different. Empty. The space they had opened was not just visual. It changed how everything moved across that land. Victoria finally looked back at me. No smile. No posture left to hold. Just a hard realization settling in behind her eyes. "This is not over," she said, but there was no certainty in it anymore. I nodded once. "No," I said. "It is not." I turned and looked at the slope one more time. The culvert sat exposed, misaligned, but still doing its job for now. The road above it held, but only because I stopped them before they pushed it too far. Below us, voices carried again, quieter now, more cautious. People were already adjusting, already trying to understand what had changed. That was the real shift. Not the trees. Not the view. Control. I stepped back onto solid ground and let the silence settle over the hillside. For a long second, nothing moved. Then somewhere below, a gate motor clicked again, responding to something I had not touched.